We're going to share national trends and considerations, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Then we're going to have an exploration this morning of the definitions. What do we mean when we're saying coaching, training, consulting, mentoring? And this afternoon, after lunch on your own, you're going to get into the core capabilities, the skills, the knowledge pieces, and have that discussion then. So starting off with, we want to see that our groups are on the same page and understanding when we use this term, here's what we're referring to. And as I mentioned, you have those resource handouts in there that aren't the end-all, be-all, you know, this is how you define things, but because there's lots of different groups in addition to all the work you're doing in Illinois that are having these conversations around what do we mean by these terms, how are we applying them. We're getting more research around these types of models. We wanted to provide you with some sample language that can be a jumping off point for your discussions. Certainly not meant to dictate them whatsoever, but as a resource.
We've given today's presentation a title that I use frequently because I think as someone who's talking a lot about effective practice and professional development, these are areas in which shift happens a lot. I have to tell you that I sometimes hesitate before I use this title. Partly, in one state I was told, oh, that's too controversial for an early childhood audience. So you have to let me know what you think about that. But what we've done today is Sarah and Gail and I have literally been involved in conversations, I would say for 9 months, to try to think about, for very complex, very kind of multifaceted topics, how to make a day interesting, engaging, thoughtful, reflective of a variety of perspectives. We hope we'll have done some of that. You can let us know at the end of the day. In the meantime, what we also know is because this is so complicated, that there may be topics that come up that are really important, but that you will not have time to explore in depth. One of the things we know about the field of about professional development in the early childhood field is that there are lots of different views of what it is and what it isn't. One of my favorite cartoons is up here, and this lady is saying to the gentleman opposite her, I'm not trying to change you, I'm trying to enhance you. And I think many of us are in professions that involve us endeavoring to enhance the lives and work of others. And I think part of what makes our work so interesting, and one of the contexts we hope that you will bring into the room today, is that when you think about these 4 areas, about training and mentoring and coaching and consultation, that there are many different ways to think about them. And this is a diagram that we came up with to sort of underscore the fact that, as for example, those of you who are in the coaching group, you might want to think about the variety of audiences who would need to be considered in your conversation. Because the heart of the matter, the heart of what we do is, through professional development, is really work with adults to enhance their capacity to enhance the lives of children and families. Is that not the essence of what we do? The work that may be going on by an individual coach or mentor who happens to be in a role of classroom teacher in helping a family to support their child to be a successful reader, it may be different or maybe exactly the same as the work that goes on for an effective coach who's working to enhance the skills of the teacher. So keep in mind that there are considerations of what do we mean by coaching to support families, to support their children? What do we mean by coaching to support professionals, to support families and children? What do we mean by coaching to support those audiences of policymakers, professional development providers, and other decision makers? So as you think about each of your topics, one of the things that you might want to take a look at is, would we have the same defining features? Would we have the same characteristics if we thought about a different application, a different audience, a different proximity to the heart of the matter, so to speak. So please keep those different audiences and the levels of proximity in mind as you work.
As Camille was just saying, role and proximity really influences definitions. So we're going to spend this morning small group time talking more about what we mean in the different contexts. Camille gave a good example of coaching, and you think about mentoring too. I was thinking about, where did mentoring come from, and I was looking back and I'm like, the history of mentoring really comes from Greek mythology. When you look at Homer's Odyssey, and you look at Odysseus, and his friend was Mentor, who he entrusted his child's education and development to. I mean, there's such a long history in these types of professional development, and really depending on what focus you're in, the proximity, the definitions can change. Even just going along with the mentoring piece, thinking about one-on-one this morning. I was joking when there were only 2 people at the mentoring table. There's the one-to-many, there's peer mentoring, there's tiered mentoring. I mean, you guys have a lot on your plate for this morning in this discussion. And I also think, with proximity and other contexts, you also look at your cultural context, your place in the field, your other factors, how you're being influenced by other field pieces, really is this perception that comes into how you define, and even if you have a definition, what it means to you in your context. One of my friend's daughter, when she was almost 3 years old, they were at the beach and they were looking at all of the shells and rocks and things that were on the beach, and she picked up this really big rock. I guess actually she was almost 2 because she was learning words, how to articulate the words in the way that her mother was working with her on. So she picked up this great big rock, and her mother said to her, "I can't stay behind the podium." And her mother said to her, "Oh, look, rock." And she said, right? She's rocking. So for all of us from the get-go, really our perceptions and where we sit influence our definitions and our meaning making. And what we're excited about here today as we go into thinking about these definitions, running through all the nomenclature, through system piece, through policy, through research, implementation into these approaches today, is that you're each bringing that different context to share in the discussions.